Today, we're going to be covering the top 10 most valuable Sandy Koufax cards. This list is incredible as it includes releases outside of the United States, a ton of regional cards, and also some food ones. Guarantee you do not know all top 10 cards on this list. Now, if you don't know who Sandy Koufax was, he's a legendary pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He debuted all the way back in 1955 at the age of 19, and he ended up playing 12 seasons, retiring at the end of 1966 due to injuries with his elbow. He pitched his last 2 years in pain, and in the last 4 years of his career, Sandy Koufax won the Cy Young Award 3 different times. In his final season before retiring in 1966, Koufax compiled some amazing stats, including winning 27 games, having a 190 ERA plus, and also 317 strikeouts. So with that said, let's start off this list with number 10, which is the 1967 Topps Punch Outs. Now, usually for a lot of players, this is going to be a lot higher on the list, but for Koufax, since he has so many incredible cards, this is towards the bottom. These were extremely tough test issue cards. The last sale I could find on this was back in 2007 for a 6, which sold for $700. These 67 Punch Outs have a full lineup card, and Sandy Koufax is displayed on the top left. In the 9th spot, we have another test issue, which is the 1967 Topps Disc. Now, apparently all these cards were originally cut from the original sheet, so these were not actually distributed, but occasionally one does come to market. For Koufax, unfortunately, there is no sales. The only thing I could find were sales of the full sheet. However, in my opinion, this is over a $1,000 card, maybe 2 or 3 if it goes to auction today. Now, normally I don't talk about postcards in these top 10 lists, but I definitely had to bring this one up. So in 1964, there was a really cool set of postcards released from the Tropicana Motel. Now, Sandy Koufax actually owned this motel that was located on Santa Monica Boulevard over in California. What's really cool about this motel is Jim Morrison ended up living here and wrote some of the Doors songs while staying at the motel. Now, there's 3 different types of Koufax postcards. The most valuable is him in his Dodgers uniform. A recent 8 has sold for around $12,000, and a 4 is still around $1,000. His other one, which is in normal plain clothes, isn't too expensive, as an 8 sold for $1,100. In the 7th spot, we have another card from 1964, and that is the MEADOWGOLD. Now, these were 4 different cards attached to the back panel of a milk carton. And the 4 players that were attached to this one were all legends. First off, you have Mantle, you have Mays, Koufax, and Bill Mazeroski. Some of you guys might think Bill Mazeroski, he doesn't belong on this list, but this is coming off of his famous home run in the 1960 World Series. And the last card before we go into the honorable mentions is the 1967 Venezuela retired card. Some of you guys might be familiar with the Venezuela cards. Well, in 67, it was technically a bootleg release, and there was a whole series of cards that were featured retired players. And since Koufax ended up retiring in 1966, he was added to the set. I think it's really cool, and I wish Topps in the US ended up producing something like this. If you're going to find this card, even in raw shape with a horrible back, you're going to be expected to pay well over $1,000, because the last PSA 1 sale was $700 in 2019, and a lot of Venezuela cards have at least doubled or tripled in price since then. Before we jump into our honorable mentions, guys, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I try to do a top 10 video every single week, as well as card show vlogs, pickups, and teaching you how to spot fake sports cards. In the first honorable mention spot, we have the 1958 Bell Brands. These cards were originally distributed with potato chips. A 5 is around $1,000. The last 8 is sold for $4,500 at a memory lane auction. Another card that deserves to be in the honorable mention list is the second year release of Koufax, 1956 Topps. Now, this set has 2 different backs, a gray and also a white back. The gray back tends to be a little bit scarcer. They have a little bit of a premium to them, but not too much. You can find a 5 around that $500 range, and an 8 is about $3,000. And lastly, we have the 1960 Morel Meats. This was a very tough regional distribution card that you can find with hot dogs. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, because another one is on this list. PSA 4 is about $400, whereas an 8 is slightly under $2,000. In the number 5 spot, we have the 1962 Pittsburgh exhibits. These are some of the toughest exhibit cards out there, and it's rumored that these were only available at Kennywood. Last 5 sold all the way back in 2017, slightly short of $2,000. Today, it's going to be at least a $4,000 card. Another extremely tough card to find is the 1959 Venezuela. Now, this is the first year of Venezuela Topps cards and can tend to be the toughest to find out there. In fact, if you want to find a Koufax, the last 2 sold for $1,500 and a 3 sold for over $3,000 back in 2018. Remember Morel meats? Well, they are back on this list with the 1959. This was a 12-card Dodger team set, and it featured legends like Drysdale, Hodges, Snyder, and of course, Sandy Koufax. The last 5 sold in a 2016 Heritage auction for $4,000. A 7.5 sold in 2018 in Mile High for 25 grand. Before we jump into our final 2 cards, if you guys want to check out the article, we're going to have it on the Breakout Sports Cards blog. You guys can check out the link down below in the description for even more cards. Our next card, I could find 0 sales data on, but because it's one of the toughest test issues out there, I thought it would fall probably in a top 5. I'm guessing at number 2, and that is the 1966 Punch-Outs. What makes this card special is it features 2 Hall of Famers on it and is in a test issue card. You have Carl Yastrzemski and also Sandy Koufax. So by having both of these guys on one single card, being known as one of the toughest cards to find out there, I had to guess it's going to be at least a $5,000 plus card, maybe 5 figures if it went to auction. And our last card should be no surprise, and that is the 1955 Topps rookie card. The last 9 in this sold for close to $400,000 in a Heritage auction, and you can find a 5 around $2,000. Speaking of 1955 rookie cards, if you guys watched my Roberto Clemente video, you can check it out right here. He has some really amazing cards as well.